money. Go get the money. Go get the money. Go!
What you do in life echoes in eternity.
You are going to incur a lot of disappointment, a lot of failure, a lot of pain, a lot of setbacks, a lot of defeats. But in the process of doing that, you will discover some things about yourself that you don't know right now. What you will realize is that you have greatness within you.
It's very important that you engage in an ongoing process to develop you.
Where all you want to do is be successful, as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
And if that doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. Keep going with massive action.
You are listening to Thought Food.
Hey, it's your girl Becky Kissoon. This is your daily source for personal and spiritual development. These messages are from Daily Meditation. You can find new uploads daily here Monday through Friday. This episode is entitled Get Out of Your Mind. Earlier this summer, I received a call from my mom. My sister and I were meeting up to go out somewhere, and I received a call from my mother that my cousin passed away. My family is very close-knit, and every time we have holidays, we are always together. And when we have family members' birthdays, we always invite each other. And it's been this way since I was born. We all don't live too far away from each other, about 30 minutes to 1 hour, and we grew up with each other. Getting this phone call, receiving this phone call, I didn't believe her at first. I said, Mom, you're lying. That's not true. Is he at the hospital? Where is he? Because if he's at the hospital, he's going to be okay. I said, he's going to be okay if he's at the hospital, Mom. She said, Becky, it's true. And she's saying it as she's screaming into the phone. Her and my grandmother are frantic, on the phone with me, on speakerphone, because they're together. And I wait until my sister gets inside of my house to tell her, because she wanted me to meet her outside. She didn't want to come in. I told her to come in, and I told her, and she dropped to the ground. And the moment became more real as we rushed to my uncle's house to be there with him. And as we started putting together the funeral arrangements, my family was with my uncle every single day for 2 weeks. And during this time, we grieved. One thing that I want to share with you all that I learned from this entire experience. By the way, I'll tell you the backdrop story. He was 17 years old. He was in a program in school where he would only go to school for the morning. Then in the afternoon, he would go to work. So he went to school for the morning of that day. Then he was driving to go to work. He was, I guess, speeding to go to work. He tried to press on his brakes as he came to a stoplight, and he was not able to press on his brakes. His brakes were not working, and they completely went out. And instead of him crashing into the person in front of him at the red light, he veered off to the left and ran into a pole. His best friend was in his passenger seat, and another friend of his was in the back seat. Him and his friend did not survive. They both passed close to instantly. And what did that teach me? Amongst many things, it has completely changed my life. One thing that I want to share with you is that I realized that nothing matters except for the current moment. Everything else is not real. Of course, now the only real moments that we have to hold on, that we shared with him, are moments that we shared in the past. But when it comes to moving forward with your life, when it comes to progressing and really living, you have to realize that the only moment that truly exists is this current moment. The past does not exist. The present does not exist. This moment exists. And I'm not saying that to say don't plan for the future or don't reminisce about the good times in the past. What I'm saying is that a lot of people stay in those places. A lot of people are worried about the future, and so they're not fully living in the moment. They're worried about getting to a moment in the future, about planning for a moment or until a moment comes in the future. Or They're worried about things that happened in the past, or they're holding on to things that happened in the past, and they're not truly experiencing fulfillment in the present moment. And I want you to realize that it's important to reminisce about the good times, and it's important to plan for the future, but living your life is the most important out of all of these things. And fully being immersed in the present moment without being consumed by your thoughts is the ultimate goal. It made me realize that I'm either holding on to the past or I'm trying to plan for my future. And I realized that sometimes I don't take the time that I need to fully be immersed in the moment. And of course, I'm into spiritual development, so I've already practiced the power of now in my life. But what I realized even more so was I wasn't practicing it to the point where I realized that moment that I'm spending with my friend is completely important, because life is not guaranteed. That moment that you have the opportunity to spend with your parents is important, because life is not guaranteed. Any malices or angers or frustrations that you have against your loved ones or people in general need to be squashed and ended. There needs to be no hard feelings from you to them, because life is too short. And a lot of people act as if they have all the time in the world, and then they live in regret when they don't have any more time left, when the time has been cut short. And what I realized is fully being immersed in the moment. In order to do that, you have to get out of your mind, and you have to be present with what life really means to you. You have to be present with the person that you want to be in the world right here and right now. You have to be present with the person that you are on a real spiritual level. You have to be present with the love of God in your heart. Sometimes you won't have the love of God in your heart, but think about the fact that God lives in me. God is a part of me. God, I need to access the love of God that you have deposited in me. I read a book some time ago called The Power of Now. It emphasizes this point further. This book is intended to be a guide for a day-to-day living, and it stresses the importance of living in the present moment and avoiding thoughts of the past or the future. It tells the reader you must recognize your personal ego. In the book, the author says that you have to recognize your personal ego. The ego creates responses that conclude in its own denial and its own destruction sometimes. And it explains that there's purposelessness of mental pain and anguish that people hold on to. According to the book, the pain body consists of trapped life energy that has split off from your total energy field and has temporarily become autonomous through the unnatural process of mind identification. Many people live with a tormentor in their head that continuously attacks and punishes them and drains them of vital energy. And this is the cause of untold miseries and unhappiness of many people. In the book, he talks about the normal or unenlightened state of consciousness and the power and creative potential that lie concealed in the now are completely obscured from psychological time. You can't find yourself by going into the past, and you can find yourself by just coming into the present moment. Life is right now. There was never a time when your life was not now, nor will there ever be a time. You are not your mind. Our civilization is built upon the achievements of the mind, and many of them are remarkable. We naturally apt to confuse the mind in its constantly thinking state as being who we are. But there is a beingness behind your mind, and by getting in tune with it, we can control our thoughts and put our emotions into perspective. Until you have control over your mind, it controls you. The mind has continual conversations with itself that are difficult to turn off. It has lots of opinions, but they are based on what has happened in the past. And it makes it difficult to experience things in the present moment. Today seems to be never as good as the great times to come or the ones that were because of your mind. You probably have come to believe that this constantly thinking voice is you, But in fact, it is only part of who you are. We are addicted to thinking because by getting us to think all the time, the ego gives us a sense of identity. Yet, continual thinking prevents us from enjoying simply being in the moment and enjoying the current moment. How do you free yourself from compulsive thinking? Begin by putting the mind into perspective by watching it. And we talked about some of these practices in the last podcast. Watch what your mind says, what it thinks. Be a witness to the rolling seas of thoughts and emotions that you experience every day. You will, of course, continue to use your thinking mind to solve problems and to survive, but by getting some objectivity from it and embracing who you are behind these thoughts, you're taking the single most important step towards enlightenment. When you can be still and when you can shut off your thinking mind, if only for a moment, you will get a burst of appreciation for the present and everything around you, and you will feel more whole. The way that our minds usually work, it's constantly going. Thoughts just come. You can't even control most of the thoughts that come to your mind. So to access the state of now may seem very difficult, but just the acknowledgement to ourselves that it does exist will help us to increase the amount of time that we are fully in the present moment. We can admit to ourselves that, for example, in the last hour, we were totally swept up by an emotion or thoughts of worry or regret. We can admit that we couldn't turn it off. And every time that we recognize that we were not living in the present, the chances that we may in the future increase. In the book, The Power of Now, Tolle suggests that you get more into the now through the routines of everyday life. Washing your hands, sitting in your car, walking up steps, breathing. Be aware of all of these moments. If they are mechanical and automatic, you are not fully experiencing the present. The basic law in the book is that the more we resist our current situation, the more painful it is. Obviously, if we are thinking, this can't be happening, the fact that it is makes it unbearable. Waiting and looking forward to the day when you will be happy or prosperous, for instance, only makes resistance to the present situation stronger. The thought that we could be somewhere else, be with someone else, doing something else, can turn our life into a living hell. We'll feel like, is there ever a way out? Tolle, the author, provides a solution. You have to forgive the situation and accept its right to be. Even if you hate the situation, accept your hatred as part of it, but don't keep saying to yourself, this is not happening, this cannot be. Consider that the present moment is actually problem-free. Problems need to exist in time, so the more you live in the present, the less life you give them. Withhold judgment about situations so that instead of an event being good or bad, it just is. Hold the fear and the loathing for a second, and you will find that a solution emerges. So he has a chapter in his book about enlightened relationships. It observes that most love relationships become love and hate relationships not before too long. It is considered normal that we switch suddenly from love and affection to savage hostility and back again, as the saying goes. You can't live with a person and you can't live without them. We believe that if we could just get rid of the negative states, all would be well. But that can never happen. Both polarities of love and hate are dependent upon each other, merely different aspects of the same dysfunction. So when we're in love, the other person makes us feel whole. But the downside is a growing addictiveness to this individual and the horror of any possibility of losing them. The purpose of real long-term relationships is not to make you happy or fulfilled. They are to bring out the pain within you so it can be transmuted. They can make you more conscious, and if you can accept this, you can move to another level, and the relationship will flow naturally, free you of your unreal expectations. If your current relationship seems like an insane drama, instead of trying to escape from it, go into it more deeply and accept the fact. Accept that assertion is that close relationships have never been more difficult than they are now. Yet they also present possibly the greatest opportunities for spiritual development. The power of now asks you to be more present